Congratulations, you're now the proud owner of the Value Pack White Speedylock Model 299. Hello, I'm Nina K. Donovan, an educational consultant for White Sewing Machine Company. Today on this video, I will show you the very fine features of the Speedylock and will show you how to use it to its fullest potential. You will soon find that this white Speedylock will be an essential part of your everyday sewing. Let's begin by reviewing the basic features of your white Speedylock Model 299. Your white Speedylock is a 3- and 4-thread serger, so it's like having 2 sergers in one. On a 4-thread serger, it has a safety stitch, which is great for garment construction, and you can also use it for finishing edges. Your 3-thread can be used in serging together knits, finishing edges, and is useful for many decorative stitching. You have numbered and labeled tensions, which are located at the top. If you see, you can actually turn your dial very easily, so it makes tension setting very simple and easy. You have streamlined color-coded threading. Simply follow the color down to the dot to each thread guide, which makes threading your Speedylock very simple and easy, and you won't hesitate in threading it. The hand wheel, which is located on the right-hand side, turns towards you just like your regular sewing machine. So there's no confusion in operation between your regular sewing machine and your white Speedylock. Also located on your right-hand side is the on and off button. The on and off button does turn on the Speedylock along with turning on the light, which is located above the working area of the Speedylock. Your Speedylock uses regular sewing machine needles. So there's no confusion and you do not have to go out and purchase different needles for your Speedylock. Regular sewing machine needles, which are flat on the backside and rounded on top. Then you have an upper cutter, which is located at the top of the machine. You simply disengage the cutter by depressing in the blade and turning up towards you. You may want to disengage your cutter while you're threading, which makes threading easier, or also when you're doing some decorative stitching. However, make sure you put that cutter back when you do regular serging, because you do not want to get your fabric caught in those loopers, because that becomes a very expensive mistake by breaking those loopers. Next, we have conveniently located on the left-hand side is your stitch length dial. The stitch length dial ranges from 1 to 5. So for a very fine stitch length for rolled edge to a very wide stitch length for working with heavier fabrics. Now located on the inside of your Speedylock is the adjustable stitch width. The stitch width can range from 5 millimeters to 7 millimeters. And this is also adjustable for getting very fine rolled edge to using with heavier fabrics. Included with your white Speedylock Model 299 is a handy accessory case complete with spare needles, rolled edge plate, lint brush, threading tweezers, spool pin adapters for even feeding of your thread, screwdriver, Allen wrench, sewing machine oil, and spool caps for when you are using regular spools of thread. At first glance, you may be hesitant in threading your white Speedylock because it's not like your regular sewing machine. Unlike your conventional sewing machine, it does not use a bobbin system in forming the stitches. Instead, it relies on a 3- or 4-thread looping system. Those loopers are much larger than regular sewing machine needles and do not pass through the fabric. Therefore, you must only serge on the edges of fabric or on folds of fabric. Before you begin threading your white Speedylock, first you must study the color-coded diagram located on the inside front cover. Notice the threading pass. Threading can be done very simple and easily by taking it one step at a time. So, take one step at a time and practice. Let's also discuss the different types of thread that you can use on your white Speedylock. The thread that you'll use the most often is the cone thread, which is high quality thread and is probably the most cost efficient given the mount on each spool. If using cone thread, make certain your spool pin adapters are in place to facilitate smooth feeding. Regular sewing machine thread can also be used. In this case, you will place the regular thread onto the spool pin and then top with the spool cap holder, again ensuring smooth feeding of your regular thread. Decorative threads can also be used in both the upper and or lower loopers. There are so many pretty threads available, such as metallics and woolly nylons, pearl cottons, rayons, and even ribbon floss. Each create a unique stitch. Today we're going to use regular cone thread in threading our white Speedylock. First, to start threading, we must first clip our thread so I can take you through step-by-step threading. Then we must clear the path of our Speedylock. To do so, simply step on your foot control, insert, and remove. Therefore, that moves all the threads out of the path. Next, you must open up your Speedylock, open up the front cover and the side. Then you must disengage your cutter. This will ensure easy threading. Always start threading with your upper looper. If you'll notice, it's color-coded with teal color and the initials UL, which stands for upper looper. Begin by bringing your thread behind the thread pole and slide it into the first thread guide. Insert thread from back to front into the first hole on the left above the teal color coded dot. Then wrap the thread over the metal thread bar and insert your thread through the second hole from back to front. Take time now to note how your thread wraps around the metal thread bar. Each of your threads must wrap around this bar in the same manner in order for your Speedylock to sew. Now bring your thread down into the upper looper tension disc, making certain it snaps into the disc. You will know your thread is in place by simply tugging at it once it's in the disc. You should feel a slight resistance on the thread. Follow the thread down the teal color coded channel and proceed to follow the teal color coded dots into guide 1, 2, 3, and then through the eye of the upper looper. Next, you will thread your lower looper. This is indicated by the lavender color coded and marked LL for lower looper. Begin by bringing your thread behind the thread pole and sliding it into the first thread guide. Insert thread from back to front into the front hole on the left above the lavender color coded dot. Then wrap the thread over the metal thread bar and insert your thread through the second hole from back to front. Make certain your lower looper thread is wrapped properly around the metal bar. Now bring your thread down into the lower looper tension disc, making certain it snaps into the disc. Give your thread a slight tug to ensure it's properly seated into the disc. Follow the thread down the lavender color-coded channel and proceed to follow the lavender color-coded dots into guide 1, 2, 3. The fourth guide is partially hidden. Use your hand wheel to bring your needles to the highest position. This will make the fourth thread guide easier to thread. Hold the end of the thread with your right hand using your tweezers. Grab a loop of the thread and place it into the groove of the lower looper. Use your hand wheel to bring your needles down to not quite the lowest position and insert your thread through the eye of the lower looper. Check to make certain the thread is laying in the groove of the lower looper. Now it's time to thread our needles. Let's start with the right needle. It's indicated by the orange color-coded dot and marked RN for a right needle. Begin by bringing your thread behind the thread pole and slide it into the first thread guide. Insert thread from back to front into the first hole on the left above the orange color-coded dot. Then wrap the thread over the metal thread bar and insert your thread through the second hole from back to front. Make certain your right needle thread is wrapped properly around the metal thread bar. Now let's bring your thread down and into the right needle tension disc, making certain it snaps into the disc. Give your thread a slight tug to ensure it's properly seated into the disc. Follow the thread down the orange color-coded channel and proceed to follow the orange color-coded dot. Under Guide 1, 2, and up and around Guide 3. Guide 3 has an inside thread guide. Make certain your thread is picked up by this hook. Now down into the thread guide 4, into the needle thread guide, and into the eye of the right needle. And finally, the left needle. It is indicated by the yellow color-coded dot and marked LN for left needle. Begin by bringing your thread behind the thread pole and sliding it into the first thread guide. Insert thread from back to front into the first hole on the left above the yellow color-coded dot. Then wrap the thread over the metal thread bar and insert your thread through the second hole from back to front. Make certain your left needle thread is wrapped properly around the metal thread bar. Now bring your thread down into the left needle tension disc, making certain it snaps into the disc. Give your thread a slight tug to ensure it is properly seated into the disc. Follow the thread down the yellow color-coded channel and proceed to follow the yellow colored dots. Under Guide 1, up and around Guide 2. Again, Guide 2 has the same inside guide hook. Make certain your thread is picked up by this hook. Now down into the thread guide 3, into the needle thread guide, and into the eye of the left needle. Once threaded, pull all your threads to the back behind the presser foot and give a tug. Remember to re-engage your upper cutting knife and close both your front cover and side door. Next, check your stitch length. Remember the convenience dial over on the left-hand side of your machine. Remember your dial can range from 1 for real lightweight fabrics, up to 3 to 4 for normal weight fabrics, to 5 for your heavier weight fabrics. Today, for normal weight fabric, we want to make sure it's on the stitch length of 3 or 4. Before you start serging, there's one more thing you need to check, and that is your tensions. Remember, we have our tension color-coded dials on the top. Remember, LL means for lower looper, which is the lavender color-coded. We have UL, which stands for upper looper, which is the teal color-coded. Then we have RN, which means for right needle, which is the orange color. Then yellow color-coded for the LN, for the left needle. Use the color-coded area as a guide to get the perfect 3 or 4 thread stitch. Your settings may be different for different types of fabric, so check on a piece of scrap fabric prior to sewing your garment or project. Now let's check your stitch settings. First, we're going to take a woven piece of fabric and fold it in half. We'll then place the medium weight woven fabric underneath the presser foot, and then lower our presser foot and serge. See how it trims, finishes, and stitches the seam all in one step. Now we need to check our tension settings on this stitch. As you will notice, you will see that the stitches meet at the top of the fold. This means that it's a perfect stitch. If, for example, the loopers had come forward or behind meeting, we would have to go to our tension settings and adjust those settings to make it meet on the fold. Next, we need to check our needle settings. Open up our piece of fabric and we will notice you cannot see the threads. If, for example, we had seen those threads, we may need to tighten that needle tension. The 4-thread stitching is perfect for garment construction and for finishing edges. However, on a 3-thread stitch, that's perfect for sewing with knits and doing creative serging. So now let's set up our serger for a 3-thread stitch. Simply open the front door and disengage the cutter by, remember, depressing and turning towards you. Then use your Allen wrench to the bottom screw. You will notice that there are 2 different screws. Use it in the bottom one, which is towards the right. Use the Allen wrench, loosen the screw, and remove the right needle. After you remove the right needle, you then want to go ahead and clip your thread. Now, why I don't clip my thread prior is so that the needle will not fall down, and it helps me prevent dropping the needle. After you remove your needle, place the needle into the cone that you will not be using. Then put your cutter back down and put your front back up. And now you're ready to do your 3-thread stitching. Now fold your medium weight woven fabric in half. Place it underneath the presser foot. Lower your presser foot and serge by using only 3 threads. There we have a 3-thread stitch. Now I want to show you a 3-thread stitch in its widest position. To do so, open up the side door of your white Speedylock. Remember our dial adjusting our stitch width, and then notice the diagram that is on the front. Arrow pointing downward, bringing your arrow downward to make the smallest stitch, and then arrow pointing upward to create the widest. We want to create the widest stitch, so we simply turn our dial upward. At this time, you may notice that the lower cutter moving towards the right. Now that we have it at the 7mm width, close back the door and then take a piece of fabric. I will be using a medium weight knit, like a sweatshirt fleece. I will fold it in half and place it underneath the presser foot. Now serge. Now see the difference in widths in the 2 different types of fabric? Now I'd like to show you the narrowest width. First, we need to readjust our Speedylock. Simply open up your Speedylock. Now looking at the diagram, we need to turn the dial downward. So move the dial downward to its lowest position. That'll bring it down to a 5mm width. At this time, you may notice the lower cutter moving towards the left. Make sure your threads are back away. Close the door. Now I'm going to take a lightweight piece of fabric and fold it in half. Now place it underneath your presser foot and then serge. Now you have a narrower width. Now we're ready to do a rolled edge. To set up for a rolled edge, we simply remove our left needle and put in our right needle. You've noticed I've already done this. I've done this to save time, and I've placed my left needle in my cone thread, which I will not be using. Next, to set up for our rolled edge, we need to adjust our tensions. First, we need to increase our lower looper tensions between the settings of 7 and 8. Next, we need to lower our tensions on our upper looper between the numbers 1 and 2. We leave our right needle tensions at normal setting around 5. Next, we need to make our stitch length narrow. We need to place it between 1 and 2 to get a nice narrow rolled edge. The next step is in removing the plate. We need to open up our Speedylock, both the front cover and the side door. To remove the plate, we need to make sure that it is in the widest width, stitch width, and then use our screwdriver out of our accessory case and remove the plate. We simply take out the screw and remove the plate. The difference between the two different plates for your regular plate and this is your rolled edge plate, the difference is in the stitch finger. As you will notice, this has a much wider stitch finger where this has a very narrow stitch finger. The reason for this is that your adjusted stitch will roll off this narrow stitch finger, the fabric will roll around it and make a very nice rolled edge. Now let's place the rolled edge plate onto our Speedylock. Simply make sure our threads are free from placing this on, and we notice that there's like a knob on the bottom that fits right into the base of our Speedylock. Place on and screw and insert the screw back in. Next, we need to bring our stitch width in to its narrowest position as we turn the dial downward. We close our Speedylock. Now we're already set up. Now let's select a piece of medium to lightweight woven fabric to do our rolled edge on. We simply place it underneath our presser foot and now serge. Now look at that beautiful, perfect rolled edge. You may have purchased the white Speedylock 299D. The D stands for differential feed. Let me first explain what differential feed means. Located on the left-hand side of your white Speedylock is the dial. If you notice, it's set at normal. When the setting's at normal, it means that the two sets of feed teeth located on your Speedylock feed at the same rate. If we activate that differential feed to a 6, what that does, it speeds up the front set of feed teeth to feed twice as fast. Let me do an example on a heavy sweater knit type fabric to show you the difference between normal setting and the 6 setting of differential feed. As you can see on a normal setting, it ripples out the fabric and is not suitable for a seam. So if we activate our differential feed to 6, serge the other side, as you can see, extreme amount of difference between the differential feed setting from normal to the 6 setting. Now I'm going to show you another example of differential feed. When we have the differential feed set at normal, and we're going to serge on a lightweight lining type fabric. As you can see on the lining type fabric, it puckers the fabric. So we're going to activate the differential feed to turning the knob the opposite direction. What that's going to do is going to hold the fabric more taut to prevent puckers. There, much suitable for serging together linings and lightweight fabrics. There are other ways you can use your differential feed, such as for gathering and decorative uses. These are only a few of the techniques that your white Speedylock Model 299 can do. So contact your local white dealer for more information about classes on using your white Speedylock to its fullest potential.